As Chick Hearn used to say, it's nervous time at the Forum. I'm Joe Trosian, and this is RamView. Live from the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Trosian, and this is RamView, the December 29th, 2023 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident? Need help? Have questions? Call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. That's one word, KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair. Having some auto issues? Get yourself some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. And by Granite Ridge Christian Camp, a place where your life can change. I was not expecting to be back on the air today, but I do have this weird thing. I say Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And Monday was a holiday, so there's an excuse there. But Tuesday I was on. Wednesday I wasn't. I was on yesterday. And when I say 3 times a week, I mean 3 times a week. And yeah, that's the part that bugs me. That's the part I'm going to make sure I hit home on, is that when I say 3 times a week, I'm a little anal on that, but I wanted to make sure I was on 3 times this week. And I covered a lot of stuff yesterday. But so this show is going to be a little more fun, a little less rigid. I hope some new information and everything. But thank you all for your clicking on and your support and the new subscribers. And let's get rolling and let's have some fun real quick here on this Friday afternoon before the technical difficulties snap back in. All right, Jets-Browns last night. That was fun to watch. Any football is fun to watch, right? Appreciate it, folks. You know, we whine about these Thursday games, and I get it. I do. I totally get it. But the thing that cracks me up is that when we get to April, when we get to May, heck, when we get to March, we're going to be wishing we had these games, because the USFL, the new iteration of the USFL, the XFL, this stuff doesn't cut it, right? It just doesn't cut it. And so Jets-Browns, it was great last night. I got Flacco fever. And all I could think of is the Browns got engaged to Deshaun Watson, and then they met Joe Flacco, right? You've heard that story. It's been 100 movies, 100 times. They get engaged reluctantly, and then they meet the person of their dreams, right? And it's like, well, you know, too bad you got engaged to Deshaun Watson, right? And it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Again, the Browns are 11-5. Right now, if they make it, well, they will, but if the playoffs were to start today, the Browns likely would be getting Jacksonville in the first round. How do you like the Browns' chances against Jacksonville right now, right? How do you like that? That means they're going to the divisional round. And you get to the divisional round, anything is possible. And so, yeah, I like them in a wild card game, and I don't think anyone wants to play them. The Ravens are really familiar with the Browns, and then you've got the Chiefs, who aren't great, and you got Buffalo, who's vulnerable. It's going to be really interesting to see how it all plays out. And if it does end up in a conference championship game, or I don't want to jinx it for the Browns fans, if it ends up in a Super Bowl appearance, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with Joe Flacco, right? What are you going to do with him? I don't think Joe Flacco is a great quarterback. I think Joe Flacco is a good, competent quarterback. But isn't it funny that you pay all the money, all the number 1 picks, all the things the Browns have done to get that quarterback, and it's a middle-of-the-road quarterback who got hot, like Joe Flacco, that takes him to the Super Bowl. It has a Nick Foles feel to it. Of course, we're getting ahead of ourselves. But what do you do next year? Because you're on the hook fully for what? Was it 270 rocks to Deshaun Watson? Wow. You know, I think they'll take the pain of that if they can go deep into the playoffs this year. So I'm rooting for the Browns. The Browns 11-5. For the Jets, how serious are they, right? I mean, when you repeatedly go with Trevor Siemian and Tim Boyle, I understand Zach Wilson's hurt, the concussion, but somewhere along the way, you owe it to your team, right, to do something, right, to bring somebody in there, and they just didn't do it. Outside of C.J. Mosley last night, I really wasn't impressed with much of what the Jets had to offer, and we'll go from there. Speaking of quarterbacks and backup quarterbacks that were in my links and my feeds today, I don't click on all the things I see. That's how you keep from getting hacked, right? You don't click on every link, but you can read the headline, who produced it, and then you know whether or not you should click or not, right? But there's a lot of buzz out there. Someone suggested on one of the sites that maybe Jameis Winston would be the Rams' backup quarterback next season, and then everyone picked up on it. It's like, why do you have to pick up on it? Why can't you just do your own stuff and stop jumping in? I think that's a poor choice. And I have to admit, I've been pro Jameis Winston since he came out of college, but the fact that New Orleans didn't feel comfortable giving him the reins after sitting behind Breeze and getting exposed to Sean Payton and all that, you would have thought, hey, that settles him down. He's ready to take the reins. But they have doubts in New Orleans, and it hasn't been a pretty picture in New Orleans these last 2 years. I don't know if I want Winston. I just don't think he's developing as it was with Baker Mayfield a year ago with the Rams. It would have been great to keep Baker Mayfield for another season, but he got the contract and he's proved well. He's going to win a division title this year, so good for him. And he's going to get more money, so good for him. But I'm thinking of Carson Wentz in the same way. Carson Wentz has the physical tools, but he needs a professional rehabilitation, right? He needs people to come back and to believe in him, because whatever it is in the locker room, he's not it. His numbers are not bad. He's had 2 bad seasons in the NFL, 2020 and 2022. 151 touchdown passes, 66 interceptions. He's made playoffs. He's carried teams. He can play. He turns 31 tomorrow. And so I don't know. If I'm Carson Wentz, I'm coming back. He's made 129 rocks in his career. He's made more money than every player that has ever come out of North Dakota, right, has ever made. And he should really think about, hey, man, I want to stay with the Rams long term. Let's give me a 2-year, very team friendly. Let's rehabilitate my career, because you have to believe if he chills, he's going to get another shot after being under McVay. And McVay, make Baker Mayfield suddenly is viable. With McVay, suddenly Demarcus Robinson looks more than a fourth receiver who plays special teams. With McVay in another year, Carson Wentz could be something. And you got to believe, too, even as well as Matthew Stafford is playing, there's going to be a moment he's going to take a hit, right? He's going to take a hit. And I think I'd rather have Carson Wentz come in than Jameis Winston. And I think I'd rather have Carson Wentz come in than Stetson Bennett. Or, hopefully the Rams are out of this mode of going on the cheap with the backup quarterback. And I don't know. I'd really like to see the Wentz thing work out. No to Jameis Winston. I don't want Jameis Winston. We've talked about the playoff picture. Falcons, Bears, we're rooting for the Bears. Saints, Buccaneers, we're rooting for the Buccaneers in this one. Put the Saints out of their misery. Seahawks, Steelers, that's up in Lumen Field, I think it's called now. And so we're rooting for the Steelers in this one. Maybe Mason Crosby has a little bit extra. Not Mason Crosby, Mason Rudolph. Maybe Mason Rudolph has a little bit extra to go. I think the Seahawks are going to win that one. But if Steelers win that game and the Rams win in New York, Steeler fan Rob gets the box of goodies I promised him yesterday, which is one of my books and a mug from Kistler Law that you see over my shoulder here. Packers and Vikings, 2 interesting things. Packers have grounded Jair Alexander, their best corner, and the Vikings are going back to Jaron Hall, the BYU quarterback, instead of Nick Mullins. And it's like both these teams are making big changes heading down the stretch. Again, Rams win, Seahawks lose, Rams are in, and that would be really nice heading into week 18 to know that we've already got a playoff appearance in our back pocket, playoff berth in our back pocket before going to Levi Stadium. Rams can win, and the Vikings and Packers can tie with a long shot, but that would put the Rams in the playoffs as well. Either way, it would be really nice to be 9-7 and heading to Levi going into week 18. All right, around the NFL and other places, probably the last time I'm going to be on. I'm not going to broadcast New Year's Day, but around the NFL and other places basically takes us to Michigan over Alabama. I'm going Michigan over Alabama, and I'm rooting for Washington over Texas. I just want Michigan to win because I want the NCAA to suffer, right? And I think they've done everything they could to derail Michigan. And I'm sorry, I know we all have our opinions and we all have our thoughts, but in my view, and I'll say this, and you're welcome to yours, and I won't diminish you if you have a different thought, one of the most corrupt organizations in all of American athletics is, or the most corrupt is the NC2A. And they're a despicable group, and I'd love to see Michigan just stick it to them. And I mean, how do you get the FBI? I mean, the FBI has nothing better to do, right, but to investigate Michigan football. Tells you kind of how gross the FBI is too. And yeah, everyone's talking about how Florida State shouldn't have been in there. You know, if Jalen Milroe doesn't get lucky on a 4th and 30-yard heave against Auburn, then Alabama has lost to Auburn, right? And so I don't know. I know everyone's going to Alabama. I agree. Alabama's good because of Nick Saban, but rooting for Michigan. And I'm rooting for Michael Penix and Washington over Texas. It would be really awesome to see a Pac-12 school in its last year of existence play for a national title. USC won the Holiday Bowl. Arizona beat Oklahoma last night. UCLA won the LA Bowl over Boise State. It's been pretty successful postseason for the Pac-12 and its swan song. Back to the NFL, Trevor Lawrence has been ruled out this week against the Panthers. He really shouldn't have started last week against Tampa Bay. That was foolish to start him. He needs to be rested. He's been beaten up this year. He needs to be rested. CJ Stroud is back for the Texans. They're 8-7, and they need to beat the Titans to stay alive. Again, I mentioned the Vikings benching Nick Mullins for Jaron Hall against the Packers. Jalen Waddle is out because of his ankle for Miami against Baltimore. That'll be interesting to see how people how that plays out. People are picking Miami in this game because they think Baltimore is going to have a letdown against after winning across the country on Christmas against the 49ers. I don't know. I want to see how Baltimore does. I do enjoy watching Lamar Jackson. Getting towards, we get to the break here. Oh, last one. I didn't talk about this yesterday. I don't know if the Lakers played last night, but the Lakers lost 6 of 8 since winning the midseason tournament, right? As of yesterday, I don't know what they are right now. They were 6-15 and in the 9th spot in the Western Conference, meaning that if the playoffs were to begin now, they'd be in the play-in tournament, right? And there are rumblings about moves that need to be made. And so you hear all this stuff, and we're less than 2 weeks away removed from the big mid-season tournament, right? The raising of the banner, right? Tell me again how important that mid-season tourney was. Really? Tell me again how important it was. I just don't get it. I just don't get it that, you know, these guys are making 45 million, 50 million already, right? And then they're going to play an extra for an extra, $500,000. You give them an extra 500,000, then they play hard. They're not professionals. I mean, they're paid like professionals, but they don't operate professionally, right? That would be like me saying I'm going to be on 3 days a week, but you pay me and I only come on 2 days a week because, I have to do load management or something, right? And so the NBA's got problems beyond problems beyond problems. All right. This question came in from listener XG1335. What would you say to someone wanting to get into sports? I assume that's sports journalism, sports coverage, something akin to what I'm doing here. I was going to say if it was you actually wanted to get into sports, be 6'5" and athletic and be a left-hander, and some sport will pick you up. But if you're thinking about it the way I'm thinking, you're saying is how do you get into sports? Well, I say this as not as an overly highly successful person who worked in sports. I made money doing sports, 21 years as a sports writer. doing various shows like this. I've been blessed to get to talk about sports. Never paid my mortgage, but it paid for some vacations. How does that say? Paid some bills in my household, and made things a little bit easier for us because of my day job as a pastor. That's not exactly doesn't exactly print money in that profession. But my thinking would be, I've been asked this before, is don't major in journalism. That's fool's gold. It's basically, when you major in journalism, you're paying to make connections. All right. And so I guess that's worth it. But everything you need to know about journalism can be learned in 2 years, right? A year of classes and a year of internship where you're just getting drilled and learning how to write every day, being edited, and finding out if you're coachable, right? My thing is that if you're going to go to school, major in marketing or business. So when you've got this idea to do sports, you know how to market yourself and do business. The journalistic stuff can be picked up, but you need to learn how to be entrepreneurial. I like to think that when I was at Mid-Valley Sports and when I'm doing this, is that we learned that no one is going to really want us. We got to make them want us. And you have to go to work and you have to create your own brand and you have to do your own stuff. You have to, if you want to say what you want to say, work hard and build your own forum and platform, right? When I was a kid, everyone hated Howard Cosell, right? Everyone hated Howard Cosell, right? But these days, his whole shtick was telling it like it is. And these days, very few people tell you like it is. You look at ESPN; it's all corporate. It's all corporate. They've got their analytics people out of the Ivy League telling you what you can and can't say. And if you walk off the reservation, they're going to fire you or they're going to suspend you, right? And same thing with all the other places. If you listen to Colin Cowherd 15 years ago compared to hearing Colin Cowherd now, he's very careful in what he says. I grew up, Howard Cosell. If you were in LA and you grew up and know who Jim Healy was, Jim Healy would be canceled like that. He would be canceled just like that. Heck, they'd find a way to cancel Chick Hearn. And I even heard Dan Lebitard take a shot at Vin Scully. Vin Scully, the fourth person in the Trinity, basically referencing that as Vin Scully spoke about Yasiel Puig, he was using some racist terms. Who's Dan Lebitard? A no-talent hack who agrees with all the corporate stuff to take a shot at Vin Scully? Kiss my mask on that, man. And so they're always finding a way. So they'll cancel you. So what you have to do, if you don't want to just be a corporate person, and it happened to me at a local newspaper that they would try to correct what we wanted to say. But if you don't want to be part of groupthink, then you have to be entrepreneurial because you have to create your own stuff, because there's always suits reading analytic reports who have no feel for sports, but are telling the sports guys what to do. And this is why 98% of all sports talk on the radio stinks on ice. The weekend stuff is better than the daily stuff. I'm getting talks about dinner. What did you do for your kid's birthday? Movies, music, ridiculous interviews that go nowhere, reveal nothing, as opposed to, hey, let's just talk about sports. And they do it because it fits. They think it fits a niche. And I guess it does with this generation. So maybe I'm going long on this. If you want to get into sports, be entrepreneurial, go to school for marketing and business to learn how to promote yourself, or spend the money, go to a major university, get some high-end internships, make sure you work for free, volunteer to do everything, and you'll make connections, and maybe you'll climb up the chain that way. But for heaven's sake, whatever you do, if you go that route, don't have an individual thought. Don't have a personal thought, because you'll get shut down. That's been my experience, and we see that all the time. I hope that answers the question. I'm sorry if I went too long on that, but that's just truth. Listener 7575 Bill, who's your favorite Rams player of all time? Favorite Rams player of all time? That's a hard one. Who did I have the most emotion for? James Harris. I had a lot of emotion for James Harris. I really like James Harris. Wendell Tyler. Yeah, I had a lot of emotion for Wendell Tyler. I really liked him. And of course, I understand why he was dealt. I don't understand why you dealt him within the division. But, Don Klosterman wasn't making the calls in those days. So I rest my case. But yeah, those were some of my favorite Rams of all time. And of course, I do respect the St. Louis years. And I did love Kurt Warner and that whole show there. So, and who doesn't like Aaron Donald? So, but I think emotionally strikes a chord. James Harris, Harold Jackson, Wendell Tyler, and likely McCutcheon, Lawrence McCutcheon too. All right, I guess we got to commercial here. My name is Joe Rosen. I was a sports writer, still am kind of, for 21 years. And if you have any questions, shoot them out at me. I'm happy to answer them. But I was a sports writer for 21 years, and now I do RamView. And thanks to our sponsors at Kistler Law, and of course, Temple City Auto Repair. And I write books. My books are found on Amazon. Type in my name, Joe Tarosian, and you'll see all my books on Amazon. I've written 2 high school football novels, as well as they've been well received, as well as several other Christian books. It kind of reveals my day job as I pastor a small church in Burbank Faith Nazarene, as well as we have our channel here called Burbank Faith Virtual, and you can find this at Burbank Faith Virtual, the website, and all over social media, and you can check us out. So cool. Glad to be here. No questions yet. Okay, that's cool. I don't think anyone expected me to be on today. It is Friday. It is pushing 5 o'clock, so that's cool. Again, I just want to get my show in because I said 3 times a week. Okay, Rams update as of right now. When I say it's nervous time at the forum, news came out today on the Rams injury report. New news. We knew about Trey Tomlinson. His hamstring was out. We knew Joe Noteboom was likely. But added to the questionable status is Nakua with a hip. Ernest Jones was held out of practice because of the flu. Alaric Jackson was limited because of a thigh injury that they think he sustained this morning. And that one makes me nervous, right? The Giant game is making me nervous anyway because we're so close. We're this close. And I could see the Rams winning this game by sitting down Puka Nakua. I'm not worried about Ernest Jones. You're going to fill him full of vitamin C, and he's going to play. Alaric Jackson makes me nervous because he has really steadied the ship there at left tackle, and you don't want to open any doors for a Kayvon Thibodeau, who I don't think is great, but he's the kind of guy that takes advantage of a moment, right? And personally, I don't want to see Warren McClendon play on Sunday. Just something to think about, right? If Jackson and Noteboom can't go, this is the Rams tackle situation. On the practice squad, you have A.J. Akuri and Logan Bruss, who have not taken a snap this season. You have Zach Thomas, who has taken a snap, but not since week 3 and in Cincy. And I don't know if we want to see him take any snaps, right? Warren McClendon has only appeared in 1 game, and that was week 5 at the end of the Philly game. He played 6 snaps for an injured Rob Havenstein. Tremaine Ankrum, who's more of a guard now, was drafted as a tackle out of Clemson back in 2020, and he hasn't taken a snap at tackle for the Rams since 2020 when he took 3 snaps against Seattle. So that tackle spot's pretty thin. If somehow we get put into a position where Alaric Jackson's thigh injury is kind of lingering and doesn't allow him to get out of the stance, and of course Joe Noteboom with his feet, and you appreciate Noteboom. Noteboom seems to be the guy that you plug in for a game or 2, and so he can handle it if he was going to go out there. But if those guys can't go, things are looking pretty bleak with everybody else currently on the roster. For the Giants, full participants in Friday's practice were Saquon Barkley, Dory Jackson, guard Justin Pugh, center John Michael Schmitz, and tight end Darren Waller. Wan'Dale Robinson is questionable with a quad. He's a big play guy for them. And Dexter Lawrence and Ashawn Robinson were both limited. And Dexter Lawrence is the guy that you're concerned with. He is the guy that can blow things up. He's just not a run stopper. He blows things up. And he's going to be a bear for either Coleman Shelton or Steve Avila, I got to believe. So something to think about. Week 17, Rams-Giants, we've talked about this. And I like the Rams. I think I'm going to pick the Rams 20. I'm going to take the Rams 28-10. There we go. Right now, last I saw, the weather was supposed to be 42 degrees, partly sunny, maybe windy. So the weather will be a factor to a degree for maybe the kicking game. So let's just see the Rams pound the ball. Looking at the games for the rest of this week, Lions-Cowboys Saturday, rooting for Detroit. Maybe they get revenge for that 5-0 playoff loss in 1970. I know everyone's worked up about that. I know I am. I'm still angry about that game. I didn't even see it. Dolphins, Ravens. I'm going with the Baltimore in this one. Patriots, Bills, going with Buffalo. Falcons, Bears, going with Atlanta. Titans, Texans, going with Houston. Raiders, Colts, going with the stash, going with Gardner Minshew and the Colts. Panthers, Jaguars. What is this? Is this the expansion bowl for 1994? And I think it's 95 or 94 when they both came in the league together. I think Steve Berline is going to be playing not Jack Delhomme. I don't know. I'm not sure who the Panthers quarterback was, or was it the guy from Penn State? Yeah, it was the guy from Penn State. I can't even remember his name now. Took the Giants to the Super Bowl. Panthers, Jaguars. I'm going with the Jaguars starting CJ Beathard. Rams, Giants, going with the Rams. Cardinals, Eagles, going with the Eagles. Saints, Buccaneers. We're going with the Buccaneers. They're going to build on that win. Remember, it was the Buccaneers were 0-26 in 1977, and they got their first win ever as a franchise over the Saints. 49ers, Taxkins. 49ers are still upset about the pass interference call in the playoff game back in 83. But so they're going to take that one. Steelers, Seahawks, a rematch of the Super Bowl. And Seahawks are going to get revenge probably and win that one. Although we are rooting for Mason Rudolph and Steeltown. Chargers, Broncos, going with the Broncos. Bengals, Chiefs. I'm going with the Chiefs in this one. And hard to stick with the Browning rifle after that flop the other night against the Steelers. Packers, Vikings. Yeah, that one's kind of tough. I think both these teams are reeling. Another quarterback for the Vikings, not starting Jair Alexander for the Packers. And this one is in Minnesota. Of course, they don't have any kind of advantage because they're not playing outside. Not that would affect the Packers. I'm going to go Packers in this one. I don't want to say it, but I think the Packers are going to win this game. Okay, let's keep moving along here. On this date, December 29th, in Ram history, in the year 2000, a guy named Woodley Lewis died. He was 75 years old. He played his high school football at Manual Arts High School in LA. He went to Oregon, and he was 8th round, 103rd overall pick in 1950 by the Rams out of Oregon. And he was a versatile guy, kick returner, played safety, corner, and all those things, all those positions. He did a lot of stuff. And as a rookie, he's listed as a free safety. Lewis picked off 12 passes for the Rams. He had a 50-yard fumble return for a touchdown. Twice he was listed as All-Pro for the Rams. He led the league in kick returns, and he played 6 years for the Rams, intercepted 23 passes, appearing in all 3 Rams championship games in 51, 52, 55. And so great player for the Rams. He was traded in 56 to the Cardinals and finished his career with the Cowboys in their expansion year in 1960. Woodley Lewis is also interesting in the sense that he was one of the first African-American players to use his position. He bought a bowling alley in downtown in South Central and was very entrepreneurial himself. And so he's kind of forgotten to history, but it did good. I looked him up, and there's no footage of him. But he passed away on this day. He had some heart and kidney issues. Passed away on this day in 2000 at the age of 75. But he deserves to be remembered. And then the big one in terms of games for December 29th is on this day in 1974. The Rams lost the NFC title game to the Minnesota Vikings in Bloomington, 14-10 at the Met. I was too young. Our good friend Steve Ramirez. He'll talk about that was a heartbreaking game for him in 69 when the Rams lost 23-20 to Minnesota. And that was the year the Rams started 11-0, lost their last 3 regular season games, had to go on the road, lost to Minnesota there. They were up, I think, 17-7 at the half. And Steve talks about the heartbreak at that game. That game was just legend to me because I didn't see it, right? I didn't start following the Rams till I was 8 in 1972. But I saw this playoff game in 74. Rams had 3 turnovers in the first half, and there were moments James Harris looked great. He just looked fantastic. And then there were moments he didn't look great. Harold Jackson was making big plays all over the yard, right? And then there was that time he made the big play, got pushed out at the 2. Rams got inside the 1, and then Pat Curran had a false start, pushed the Rams back 5 yards. And if you remember what happened, next play, Harris rolled right, threw back into the end zone. Future Ram, Jackie Wallace, tipped the pass, and Wally Hilgenberg picked it off in the end zone. That one was a killer. There was a bogus offside call on Fred Dreyer after he had nailed Fran Tarkington. It was like, well, if he sacked Fran Tarkington, he had to be offsides, right? Because that dude was hard to sack. But Fred Dreyer got him, and instead they called him offsides, and that was converted into a Dave Osborne touchdown. And then the Rams were down 14-10, something like 5 minutes to play, and the Vikings ran out the clock. And there was this Chuck Foreman fumble that bounced forward, and it seemed to bounce forever, right? You had Al Clark, Isaiah Robertson. They all had shots at grabbing it, and that ball just kept bouncing. But the Vikings recovered it, and this was painful, right? And if it seems like I haven't gotten over it, you're right. I haven't gotten over it. You know, I'm pretty bitter about that stuff. And so, yeah, this was a tough day back in '74. The week before, I had been at the Coliseum seeing the Rams beat the Redskins. Speaking of the Redskins, their head coach that day was George Allen. And on this day in on December 30th, tomorrow, for the second time, the Rams fired George Allen, and this time it was for good. The Rams finished out of the playoffs in 1970. They were 9-4-1, and Allen ended up going to the Redskins. What was interesting is I just realized this is, do you realize George Allen was fired 3 times by the Rams? He was fired in 1968, and then his players revolted, and Dan Reeves, the owner, was forced to bring him back. He was fired for good in 1970, and he left to the Redskins. And then after the 77 season, Carroll Rosenblum brought Allen back, and George Allen lasted 2 preseason games and was fired a 3rd time by the Rams. How many times was Billy Martin fired by the Yankees? Because I don't know of another coach that's been fired from a major sports team 3 times. And George Allen was fired 3 times within a span of 10 years by the same team. Isn't that amazing? My link to that history is my brother and I. We were at that preseason game against the Patriots, which was the last George Allen game. We were there. It was a boring game. And that's a lot to say when you go to a football game, to say it was boring. But we were bored. Rams lost. Got up the next morning, and we're reading about George Allen being fired again. So, yeah, 3 times George Allen got fired. Also, going to acknowledge that Carson Wentz turns 31 tomorrow. And then one other thing about tomorrow, it's a very special day. In 1979, tomorrow is the 44th anniversary of Vince Ferragamo's pass to Billy Waddy that won that game for the Rams, 21-19 in the divisional playoff that sent them to Tampa Bay and eventually sent them to the Super Bowl. One of the sweetest wins of my life as a Ram fan. What I loved about that game, besides it was a great pass by Ferragamo, great play by Waddy, was the first time that I was aware of it. Bud Carson, who later became the Browns head coach, but Bud Carson was the Rams DC for Ray Malavasi, who was a pretty prominent defensive coach himself, but Bud Carson was that. And maybe I was just growing up, but it was the first time I noticed that Bud Carson put 7 defensive backs in the game down the stretch to make sure Staubach couldn't engineer a comeback win. And I always have that to hold on to, is that Roger Staubach ended his career on his butt at Irving Stadium, seeing the Rams beat the Cowboys. And for all the pain that Roger Staubach caused us as Ram fans, that's one thing that I really appreciate. So tomorrow is the 44th anniversary. So if you're gonna remember somebody, say, thank you for Billy Waddy and Vince Ferragamo on that day. Amen. Amen. Okay, and I think we're there, and we're gonna let you guys go. I don't know if I have any questions yet. Let me see. I don't think. Oh, goodness gracious, we did get some questions. All right, Tim Burns. On another side, I saw a lot of venom from St. Louis area football fans hating the Rams. They hate Georgia, and I had to tell them LA fans hate her too. Yeah, I understand how they feel because we know how we felt. The problem was they did make a deal with the devil, and it came back. The Rams always belonged in LA. They always did. The Rams, something should have been worked out like what the Browns did. The Browns left their colors, left their history, left it all in Cleveland, so they were able to pick it up. And when the new franchise came in, and honestly, if they had gone to St. Louis and become the River Cats or the Gamblers or whatever, that would have been less painful. That way we would have thought a new expansion team comes in, they could just pick up the Rams mantle. But yeah, I didn't know St. Louis fans hated Georgia. I didn't know that. Steeler fan Rob, I think if the Steelers win and the Rams lose, I should at least get the mug. I don't know. I'll think about that. Tim Burns, Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt, or Cup Puka. Bruce and Holt. I'll take Bruce and Holt. Those guys are Hall of Famers. Cup could be. Puka, we're at the very, very beginning. USA expat. Ouch. Are we talking about the 74 playoff game? You remember that day? If that's what it is, yes, I remember that day too. Grew up hating the Niners, Cowboys, and of course the Vikings. Yeah, I don't think people appreciate the vitriol we had for the Vikings because they went away, right? And we did lose a playoff game in Minnesota in '88, but it wasn't the same. And I've said this repeatedly on the show here, that the Vikings went away the second they decided they wanted to host Super Bowls instead of playing Super Bowls. They lost their biggest advantage, which was playing in that snowy weather. Green Bay understands it. Chicago understands it. I remember when the Rams lost in '85 in Chicago, got to the fourth quarter, and they're kicking Rams' butt, and they're just waving and excited as the snow starts to come on the LA players and everything, and they're just it was an added element. Why the Vikings got away from that, right? Just crazy. I understand they want to host, but there's nothing special that makes it hard, like going to Buffalo. Going to Buffalo is hard. They went to 4 straight Super Bowls, and don't tell me that their weather and what they had to offer there in Buffalo didn't play a part in that. So yeah, the Vikings faded as far as a huge hatred, for a Ram fan. And of course the Cowboys, when they play the Russians, I'll root for the Cowboys. The Cowboys, may they rotten like stinking in the earth. There we go. Richard Ramos. I remember when my dad would tell me about the catch. I believe, again, it was the 49ers, and I might have the wrong name, but Bobby Waddle. Billy Waddy. If you're talking about the Rams catch, it was Billy Waddy in '79. For the 49ers, it was Dwight Clark in '81. That was the catch. U.S. expat. George Allen loved his vets. Yes, he did. It was really interesting. After '77, the Rams traded Harold Jackson, right? And you would have thought Harold Jackson was a Ram for life. And Harold Jackson got sent to the Patriots. Interesting thing, too, is Harold Jackson in '68 was sent to the Cardinals, not to the Cardinals, to the Eagles by who? George Allen, because he just didn't like to. If you look at Allen's track record going back and forth, Allen didn't think much of Harold Jackson, and he sure didn't think much of Marlon McKeever. When he got to the Rams, he had Marlon McKeever dealt, and then when he got to the Redskins, he dealt Marlon McKeever back to the Rams in that famous Ramskins trade of '71. Prince Vince. Isn't it amazing? Vince has that run, and he will always have a tender spot in Ram fans' history. Thank you. Yes, USA expat. Keno Hawk. Played NFL 2K, picked the best team in the game, which was the Rams. Been a fan ever since. Oh, wow. Good. I never got into the game stuff, when I was younger. We had the electric football, which is interesting for a while. It's nostalgic, but it's not great. The one we got into was talking football, where you had the little record, you set it in there, your offensive play, and your opponent got to spin until they got to the defense they wanted, and you had Enberg's voice come through. We were very big into talking football. If the stuff they have now was out when I was a kid, I never would have left the house. I never would have, because the stuff they have now is just absolutely amazing. It's just amazing. So in one sense, I'm sorry. I don't know that stuff, but in one sense, I'm happy I do. Richard Ramos, amen. I wish I know what the amen was for, brother. You tell me. Joe Montana, second coming of Fran Tarkin for early Rams fans. But here, here's the funny thing, and I'll say this, USA expat. I didn't hate Joe Montana like I hated Fran Tarkenton. I hated Fran Tarkenton. Hated him. Did I tell you how I felt about Fran Tarkenton? I hate it within the context of football. And he wasn't even somebody that I grew to appreciate. As a Laker fan, you hated Larry Bird, but you just had to appreciate his game, right? You just had to appreciate how good he was. And the same thing with Joe Montana. I remember watching that Super Bowl where they just clobbered the Broncos, and it was like 55-10 or whatever it was. And you're just watching it, and you're just so appreciative when you're watching. You're like, this guy's great. It's like watching Brady. Brady beat the Rams twice in the Super Bowl. I never hated Brady. You just watch somebody that's so great at their craft. I don't like going to rock concerts. Rock concerts bore me. If I'm going to listen to music, I got to be doing something. But there's times I've been to a few concerts with my wife that when you see the skill of some of these musicians, how they started off in their garage or whatever and just worked their way up, and they're so finely tuned. It's the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hour thing, right? They're just experts at what they do. You just grow to appreciate that. And that's what I learned about Montana. I just learned to appreciate that. Never did with Tarkenton. Never did. The only joy about the Tarkenton run with the Vikings is, well, they were 0-3 in the Super Bowl with Tarkenton, but Bud Grant was 0-4 with the Vikings. And so that's always been a pleasure to me. Richard Ramos, I remember in high school collecting football cards. Joe Montana and Jerry Rice were on my dartboards. Can I tell you, Richard, I've got a Joe Montana rookie card. I did. At one time, it was worth $175. I've got it in some plexi tucked away somewhere, but I never sold it. I probably should have sold it. It's probably not worth as much now. I don't know much about it. I had it sitting in a drawer, and then when they were doing a Montana feature before one of the Super Bowls, they showed his rookie card, and I go, I've got that card. And so I do have a Joe Montana rookie card and such. So, all right, guys, I think I answered all the questions. Great talking with you. If you have anything others, shoot it at me. I went 42 minutes. I did not expect to go 42 minutes. I don't feel like this was the best show in terms of information. It was great chatting. This was the best part of the show. But wanted to get it in to say we did 3 this week. And as a reminder, thank you so much for those that have subscribed. Be sure to check us out on Spotify. And we're trying to build our market there, and it's hard. It's hard. I should have taken a marketing class to learn how to build a podcast. But thank you so much for clicking on there. We'll be back on Tuesday. I'm not going to broadcast on New Year's Day. Too much going on. Oh, wow. Okay, I'll repeat this in a second here. But check us out there. And I want to remind everybody that we are going to be here throughout the offseason, right? Even when the Super Bowl ends, we'll be on 3 times a week, even in that really desperate dead period material between the end of the Super Bowl and the beginning of free agency. I think the new season, March 15th, that's generally when it happens, that we're going to keep going. And so, yeah, talking Rams football, talking NFL football, any other stuff that comes up along the way. Richard Ramos, my amen was for your knowledge of football. Thank you for your great content, bro. Richard Ramos, man, thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. I don't know what to say. I'm a little overwhelmed there, but thank you so much for being so encouraging. Every time you guys click on and ask questions, it's really encouraging. And Bill, hello to you, Bill. Thank you so much for clicking on. I know I got on later today. I try to make 3:30 my drop to make sure I'm up at 3:30, but I didn't know I was going to go on today. And there was a technical issue earlier with YouTube that wouldn't allow me to get on, but we're here and we got this show in. All right, guys, thank you so much. I think today has definitely been a stone groove. Stone groove, my man. And happy to be here. So God bless. Have a safe New Year's. We will see you on Tuesday. And go Rams. Let's finish this. Steeler fan Rob, you got work to do.